Okay, so stop me if you have heard this before. There's a terrorist attack. Some people get killed in a very brutal way, and the attack doesn't happen because the criminal wants money or because the criminal is unwell. It happens because the criminal has an ideological agenda to push. And people are shocked. They can't believe that it happened in a first world country. They can't believe that the authorities failed to prevent it. Oftentimes, the authorities had the criminal under surveillance, but apparently that didn't stop it. And then a couple of days later, you get a family member, usually a father or a brother or someone like that, and they appear on television and they say that their son was at a university, or they had a bright future ahead of them, and their son was a very compassionate and tolerant individual, and he wouldn't want this moment to bring more hatred. He thinks that now is a time of healing and it's a time of getting together and not allowing hate to win. And then you have like all these people online that are calling the father a cock. They're wondering like what type of parent can say something like this. It's kind of like, well, I mean, if the son was there, he would basically shake hands with the criminal. And look, again, stop me if you heard this story before, because I heard it from like 5 or 6 different nations. And most individuals can say, okay, well, like maybe it was a very Christian individual. Like he was extremely pious. And so, he was kind of like Marie Antoinette before getting executed, who was begging God to forgive the people of France for what they're doing to her and her children. Maybe we have something like that. But why do we always get something like that? Like, did you notice that the pattern is always the same? Like, where is it after, like 30 or 40 events that you eventually get the father that's like demanding vengeance, demanding blood, or saying like, these politicians should be held accountable. These are their names. I will not rest until I see them taken down from office. Like, what are the other type of human sentiments from people that maybe aren't as devout Christians? Like, maybe there are some people that genuinely demand vengeance. We don't see them, right? And so it's interesting because you gotta wonder, like, okay, so what is in the mind of a person that just lost a family member and then goes to the mainstream media in order to have the diversity speech? And why is the diversity speech almost copy-pasted from one person to another? And so I did a little bit of digging, and I found out on various forums and various places that there is a script in order to make this happen. And it isn't insidious, as most people believe. It's probably not even a conspiracy. But it works kind of like this. So, right now, like at this very moment, there are organizations, NGOs, groups of lawyers, journalists, like people that form together a sort of crisis management network. And they're ready to go. Like, if a terrorist attack happens today, they're ready to go, right? Like, they're not planning anything. They're just waiting for the event. And I want you to imagine what it's like to be a father that just loses a son, right? So, like, let's say in your country there's a terrorist event, maybe at a concert or a club or something, and you just find out that your son died. Most people aren't individuals that are connected politically, right? Like, most people aren't doom scrolling on Reddit. Most people aren't interested in politics. Most people are normies. Like, most people, they just want to go to work, they want to come home, and they want to watch TV and relax so that they can go to work the next day. And so when they get an event like that, like their son is just fine and he goes out, and then you find out that he died in a terrorist attack, it feels like the world just stops making sense. It like you're in a place that probably over 70% of the human race never goes there. And during this place of torment and confusion, you start getting phone calls. And you get approached by people that don't seem to be connected to one another, and chances are they may not be. But you can get connected by a human rights organization, an NGO that fights hatred, and they call you and they will say that they found out about what happened to your son from the news, and they are trying to offer their sympathies, and there's a large donation or something like that, in order to help your family. You get lawyers that want to offer legal counsel, that want to nudge you in the correct direction. You get psychologists that offer their services for free, pro bono, right? Now, all these people are paid from various donations, sponsors, NGOs, stuff like that. But all of a sudden, in the moment of grief, they all seem to come up and they're not asking for anything. They're just trying to offer compassion. Now, the thing that's happening is that all these people that are connected to each other, they do share the same script, right? Like, they do share the same left-wing ideology. They do share, like, the same buzzwords, the same thing that probably the family member has already heard from. It's like, oh, we shouldn't let hate win. This was an isolated attack, and radicals are now going to try to use the death of your son in order to push for more hatred, blah, blah, blah. And again, when you have a traumatized individual that are very susceptible for, reaching out, and they generally want other people to comfort them, they don't realize that they're being nudged. And then, of course, you have the mainstream media, which is very interesting, because this whole nudging tactic is going to work on some people, but it's not going to work on others, right? Like, for example, if one of my family member dies, like, I wouldn't reach out for compassion and understanding. I would immediately reach out for the politician and wonder what the fuck he was doing and why isn't he resigning yet, right? Now, people like me exist. And it doesn't really matter the number of experts that would surround me and would try to tell me what to think. Like, no, I would be like, I'm going in front of the cameras and I'm going to start raging. And so the journalists, they act as the gatekeepers. Like, if they see that the person is not playing the script, that's fine. They will just not air the footage, or they will just refuse to interview them. Like, if you have an event such as the Nice attacks, right, where there are hundreds of victims, I mean, they have a lot of family members to pick from. And so if 60% or 70% of the family members don't feel like getting nudged, then the rest that do, those are the ones that appear on the television. It's the same thing in the United States. I don't know if you guys noticed that when there's a school shooting, immediately you have the parents that happen to be Democrats, and they happen to be against the Second Amendment. And they all take a moment in order to politicize the event, which again is like quite the opposite of what's happening in Europe, right? Like, they don't take a moment to politicize against multiculturalism. And so this is because the journalists are not necessarily like manufacturing or getting crisis actors or anything like that. But like, when you have a big pool of people to choose from, you can actually choose the person that actually agrees with your ideology. And finally, there's also the public pressure. Like, in nations that are drunk on multiculturalism, it is understandable that if you want a job, especially as an upper middle class person, you have to speak the speech. And if you go against the speech, well, you can get fired, you can stop getting recommended, you can get ostracized by people. And so most individuals are not being blackmailed and being told it's like, hey, if you don't say the correct things, but they kind of know, right? Like, they kind of know that if rallies happen and everyone is now going to bob their image on a pole as if it's a orthodox icon of a saint, it's going to affect their jobs. It's going to affect their future careers. And they're thinking, well, shit, like, my family member just died. I need money for the funeral, and I need to take care of the family members that are still alive. And so if I end up getting fired, if I end up getting a pariah, I will not be able to do that. And so this is how it's happening. Like, there's a lot of pressure, a lot of buzzwords, a lot of pre-programming that's happening, and all of these experts and people from various fields approach the victim of the family hours after the event in order to try to nudge them to the correct thing. And then you have the journalists that also make the selection, and they make sure that only the people that say the authorized script are going to be produced in front of the cameras. And it's also, again, like the cultural terror, that if you're against multiculturalism, especially after an event and you don't say the correct things, then you can end up getting fired or socially ostracized. And so this is why it's happening. It's not crisis actors. It's not people being paid in order to say a script. It's basic bitch manipulation of the masses. Let me know what you guys think. And as usual, we'll see each other in the comment section. Take care.